Unit 7, Lesson 6, Graphing Lines in Standard Form. So today I'm going to teach you how to actually graph a line that's in standard form. Yesterday I taught you how to figure out the x and y intercepts. Today we're going to use that to actually graph the line. So I want to remind you how you graph a line in y equals mx plus b form. So remember, if you're given something in y equals mx plus b form like this, the first thing you do is you'd plot the y-intercept. So you'd find 7 on the y-axis, put your point there. Then you would put your pencil on the y-intercept and move to the next point according to the slope. So we'd go up to the right one. And then we'd connect the dots. So that's how you graph a line that is in y equals mx plus b form. You can't use that method for standard form because remember, standard form, you can't easily decide what the y-intercept is and what the slope is, right? So here's a line in standard form. You can't just look at that and say, yep, the y-intercept is this and the x-intercept is that, okay? So we have to use a different method to graph lines that are in standard form. So to graph lines that are in standard form, you find the x and y-intercept, and then you plot those 2 points and connect the dots. So that's the method for graphing lines that are in standard form. So let's do that. So we are asked to graph this line using the x and y-intercept method. So let's find the x-intercept and then the y-intercept. So remember, to find the x-intercept, you let y equal 0. And then we solve. Okay, so the x-intercept is at 3 and 0. Now let's find the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept of this line, we let x equal 0, plug in 0 for x, and then we solve for y. Okay, now that we know the x-intercept of this graph and the y-intercept, we can plot them, connect the dots, and then we've graphed this equation. So the x-intercept is at 3 and 0, and the y-intercept is at 2 and 0. So if we connect the dots, there's the graph of 2x plus 3y minus 6 equals 0. Okay, if we were asked to graph this line using the x and y intercept method, what is the first thing we would have to do? So the first thing we would have to do is put this in standard form, right? Because it's not in standard form. Our a, b, and c are not whole numbers, and our a value is not positive. So to remind you how to do that, I'm going to show you right here. So let's write out the equation. Okay, so to get these all into whole numbers, I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 2 because that will turn all these fractions into whole numbers. So 2 times negative 3 over 2 is negative 3x plus 2 times 15 over 2 is 15, and 2 times 5 over 2 is 5. Okay, now I'm going to move this term to be with the other guys. And finally we have to make a positive. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation by negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 3x is 3x. Negative 1 times negative 5y is 5y. Negative 1 times 15 is negative 15. Now we are in standard form, right? A, B, and C are all whole numbers, and A is a positive number. So now to graph it, you would just use this equation and you'd find your x and y intercepts. So let's find our x-intercept first. So we let y equal 0. So our x-intercept is at 5 and 0. Now our y-intercept, we let x equal 0. We simplify. And therefore our y-intercept is at 0 and 3. Okay, so then if we had a graph, we would just plot those 2 points and connect the dots. Okay, so 0 and 3 is right here, and 5 and 0 is right here, and there it is graphed. So it's just important to remember that before you graph it and use this method, make sure the equation is in true standard form first. So sometimes there's this extra step here, and then once it's in standard form, find your x and y intercepts, plot the 2 points, connect the dots, and there it is graphed.